Hi, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. This is Anthony Paradiso coming at you. And JoLynn's over there. How you doing, JoLynn?
I'm doing good. How are you? Happy Pride.
I know, happy Pride. Woohoo! It's Pride Month. Obviously, you know what our discussion will be today, or at least this month will be Pride. But anyway, we're glad to see you all. It's been a month for sure. Again, I'm Anthony Paradiso with Industrial U.I services. If you ever want to reach out to me, you could email me a Paradiso, Paradiso at industrialui.com. And JoLynn, how can people reach you?
It's JHaresign at industrialui.com.
And just so everyone knows, if you're just first reach, if you're first listening to us, Industrial Y, we have been around for a while now. We primarily do unemployment insurance cost control for employers. And the last several years, we have recently started new services such as HR support. So any kind of general HR employee relation consultation, compliance, handbook development, any kind of training and development, you name it, we do it. And then also we now also offer verification of employment and verification of income services. So if you ever had any questions about any of these services we offer, please feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to talk with you and assist in any way that we can. But as mentioned earlier, or just a few minutes ago, our topic for today is Pride Month. So again, happy Pride to everybody. As we started doing things, we usually go into a fun fact and what's going on this month. This month, as most know, it's Juneteenth. So be aware that that's coming up. It's always good to have some kind of, facts of history about what Juneteenth is. So again, this is the month of Juneteenth, and there's also it's PTSD awareness and men's health. Um, it's all important things. And then also just a fun fact. There's a good reason June is so popular for weddings. In addition to nearly perfect weather, the month of June is considered auspicious for weddings because it's named after Juno, the Roman goddess of marriage, home, and family. So who knew? Um, but before we go into the questions surrounding Pride, I know JoLynn, you went on a vacation recently.
I
You want
did.
to tell us about it?
Yes, it was my first trip ever to Europe. I went to Spain, France, and Italy, and it was amazing. I love to travel. I love to experience different cultures. Last year I went to Costa Rica. This year it was you know, Europe, and I brought my daughter and my nephew and my sister, and we had like a family trip. And it was just amazing because when you experience something, that's one thing, but then you see the experience in, like, my nephew is 14, so I see it through his eyes and like how he experiences all these things, and it like changes the whole, you know it changes how you perceive things, because you're like, I'm looking at it as, a 50-year-old woman being in Europe for the first time, and he's 14, and we kind of have different experiences but also shared experiences. So it was really interesting, and my daughter was there too, and it was really good to have that time for a vacation, which is very important for your mental health, but also to like experience a new culture, something that is different from your own, because it gives you appreciation for your own, home, but it also gives you appreciation for learning about other people's traditions and cultures. And it was just an amazing trip. Highly recommend.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was your? I know you and I have had discussions offline and about all this, and as you know, my husband and I love traveling as well. What was your favorite place you went to? I mean, they're all great. So, but which one
Yes.
which one really stood out to you?
The first day was Palma de Mallorca, which was like it was a beach day, so we just kind of like, I mean, the weather was a little overcast and it was like in the 70s, so it wasn't like a hot beach day, but it was just so peaceful. It's such a laid back atmosphere. The people were great. And I also like Barcelona. Like, I would love to go back there and spend, instead of spending a day or two, in Italy, France, and Spain, I would love to spend like a week or two in Barcelona. Just the city is just amazing. The architecture, the street vendors, it's just it's something that I definitely would like to spend more time in, and it was a lot to take in, and I
Yeah.
would love to go back.
Yeah, that was we've been all over Europe, and one of our favorite places. And I know for some reason it surprised me. I didn't expect to love it so much, but Barcelona was up there.
Yeah.
Food was amazing. I know you probably weren't there long enough, maybe, but the food is outstanding. Which not that it surprised me. It was much. I was blown away by it. We've always discussed, down the road, and I know this is not our discussion, obviously, today vacationing, but as you mentioned, it is important. We do need to, for our mental health, and we want to enjoy things besides just work. Again, work is important, but so is, having that fun time with your family and your friends. So, I guess I feel not that I feel bad talking about it, but I guess I look at, I look at our discussion today around Pride, but it should also be important to, to discuss our vacations like you are. So I shouldn't feel so
Yeah.
bad. Not sure why I do.
No,
Anyway,
absolutely
uh,
not. Yeah.
yeah, but Barcelona is great. So I'm really glad that you guys, were you all, was your nephew and daughter, was that their favorite too, or they had different perspectives?
My nephew was all about the pizza in Italy. He was he I think he had a pizza in every we were in Rome and Naples and Florence, and he tried the pizza everywhere, and he thought it was amazing. Um, I think it's hard when they're 14, because they're like, yeah, it's all right, it's cool. Um, and but my daughter had an amazing time. She was just so like enamored with, being in a different, culture or the different languages. And they speak three languages in Barcelona, like it's English, Catalan, and Spanish. So that was interesting to navigate. But
Well,
and I
awesome. So,
understand that you had recently had a loss in your family, and you know, how are you dealing with that?
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned. I mean, obviously, I wish it never happened, but I guess it's part of life, and we're okay. So my husband Vinny, his mother passed away about almost 2 weeks ago, and she had Alzheimer's. So I've been with my husband for over 10 years, and when I'm knowing him, I've known his mother as well, and she had Alzheimer's when I met him. So it's been a very long process. So there was, it was very tough. Because she also towards the latter part had breast cancer as well.
Yeah.
So a lot coming our way. So it was just, a lot of stuff. And it's an interesting disease because you're dealing with, the loss of, your mother. With the Alzheimer's, you're dealing with that part of it because it's such a long process that you're grieving through that, and then you're kind of grieving again now when the actual person is gone. So it's just a very taxing and very just a very long process. So, I'm glad we're talking about it because, it's not just me, but we're all dealing with things in our lives. We all have, we lose people, unfortunately. So just it's very important, as we mentioned too, with vacationing, that mental health piece, giving yourself, the time necessary that you have off, um, making sure that you're unplugging, unplugging during work time or after work time, just giving yourself enough time to really just grieve, um, and surround yourself with as much love and family and friends as you can, which is which we're lucky we have all those things. So I'm very grateful for that. You all at my workplace have been fantastic, reaching out to me, texting me, calling me, seeing how I'm doing, seeing how Vinny's doing. So it's, his job has been very has been there for him. So we're just very lucky to have that support. But it's been a challenge. So I just remember out there, just to make sure you give yourself that time to get, to unplug and make sure you're giving yourself that time to grieve, think about things, and all that. So,
Absolutely.
um, So with that, we're going to go into Pride. So some happy things, although there could be some not always happy things for Pride. I mean, Pride mostly is happy, but there's always things going on surrounding issues that can be frustrating at times. So,
For sure.
but anyway, we'll be happy. So, question for you, JoLynn. What does Pride Month mean to you personally, and how has it impacted your life?
Well, I'm a child of the 80s, so I grew up in like surrounded by gay friends, and I I've seen like how generationally we've changed in our attitude towards pride. It was for a long time we really talk about it. We didn't talk about, our sexuality. It was like very much hidden because of the, societal ramifications of being out. And I think the one place that you felt like you could, be yourself is in those community spaces that you created back then, like the clubs and the other spaces where it was very much accepted. So I'm thrilled and beyond happy that it's now, become something that is really celebrated. It's something that is encouraged, to people for people to be, to live their authentic selves and to be who they are and love who they love. Um, you know, as I mentioned, I had a lot of friends that, I lost during the AIDS crisis, and watching them, go through that and feeling not only the shame of the disease, but the shame of, the stigma attached to, being gay. Um, it was really tough, because it's like you're suffering in silence twice, suffering in silence because you have this awful disease, and you're suffering in silence because of the shame and stigma surrounding being gay. And it was really heartbreaking to see that. And so how far we've come has just been amazing. So every time I see a Pride Month, I always reflect on, where we were and where we are now. And I think that we can always make improvements. We always have a ways to go. But thinking about, how my friends who are no longer with us would feel knowing that shame and stigma is going away and that they can be celebrated now. I think that's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And it's good to see that where we are with Pride Month. I mean, a lot of organizations are celebrating. I speak at numerous engagements during the month. Myself being a part of the LGBTQ community, it's important that we have these conversations. Um, so I'm glad that we're having them, educating ourselves, because not everyone knows all about the LGBTQ plus community. So it's just good to be
Mhm.
mindful to, go online. Again, we're in social media age where you can just easily find things, Netflix, just, watch programs about what people who are part of the community are doing, what their lives are about. And it's I mean, I'm great. Like in my area, I'm seeing, pride flags in the various towns. Actually just a few days ago, I was at my nephew's school, and they had like Happy Pride Month on their communication the communication thing outside the school. So it was just cool seeing that, because I know when I was, because I'm a child of the 80s and 90s myself, and I know that, that wasn't we didn't see any of that. We didn't see discussions around Pride Month. Schools weren't discussing it. Organizations weren't giving, statements or doing, monthly engagement speaking, having someone come in and talk about it. So we've come a long way. As you mentioned too, we do have ways to go, but I also don't want I also do want to make sure that we are, we are expressing and celebrating the accomplishments that we've had the last several years. So yeah, I am very happy that we're able to have these conversations like you and I are right now. So yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that I'm seeing, towns have, pride events, either it be, the parades, or it be just vendors out there, celebrating it. So it's, it certainly is a celebration because again, we've come a long way.
Absolutely.
And next question. So what significant advancements in the LGBTQ plus rights have been seen over the past few years, and what challenges remain?
Well, I as I discussed, I've seen a lot of, moving forward in my lifetime, but I feel like in the recent months we've kind of taken a few steps back in several states where they've, you know, the Don't Say Gay in Florida and the ban on drag shows in Tennessee. And so I see a lot of backsliding into, these places where you I just don't understand. I don't understand how someone can, put a ban on something that's part of your identity. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like those challenges are really especially hard for our youth, our teens, who are, probably, I know it's easier to come out now than it was, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, but I know that people still struggle with coming out. And I feel like this atmosphere doesn't really help. If we want our, our kids to feel like they're included and part of society, we have to have, mechanisms and infrastructure to support them. And when you have certain states and municipalities that are, building these barriers for people, it can't you're not allowed to feel like who you actually are, and that can be harmful for kids' mental health. And I've heard all of the arguments like, well, drag shows sexualize children, and I'm like, I don't understand how the you can make that comparison. Like, you have your kids go to a wedding celebration, and that's that is celebrating a marriage. And but is that sexualizing children, being part of a wedding celebration where people are dressed up? I mean, I don't understand a lot of the rhetoric.
Yeah.
um but I'm hopeful that we're gonna get beyond it.
Yeah, it's you mentioned a very important part is our youth, and certainly it's coming out now is I don't know if I want to say the word easier. It's certainly more acceptable. Um, and I guess maybe it depends also where you are located, where you're located. It might be even more accepted. It might be easier
Mhm.
depending where you are located regionally. But it's very hard. It's interesting. I had this conversation. I'm not sure it was last year or as acceptable as it is now. When I was in the 90s when I was in high school, we really didn't talk about anything surrounding pride or gay or LGBTQ. Even AIDS. We didn't really even discuss AIDS much, really. And now we're having all these conversations now. And what's happening now is now what concerns me is now people that are young are seeing all this hatred rhetoric out there. Whereas when I was in the 90s, there really was no discussion. There was no hatred rhetoric because there was no rhetoric at all. So
Mhm.
they are seeing things now, like, even some surrounding towns where there's towns towns not wanting to put the pride flag up, or school systems that wanted to avoid the conversation. So if you are a student, someone who's young, and you are coming out, or you're aware of your sexuality, but you're not able, but you don't want to voice it yet. When you see these things happening, how do you go about that? If your own elected officials locally don't want to, you know, um, raise a pride flag, or, have a pride day, or whatever it is, and the states that you mentioned too, how do you do that? Because how do you avoid what your identity is? I mean, you can't really, I mean, you are who you are. You can't
Mhm.
really, it's, and then if you don't allow people to be who they are, as we've seen in the numbers and the data, organizations are not going to thrive. So
Right.
overall, it's just and you mentioned like drag shows. The first thing that comes to mind when we talk about this as education, I don't think people really know what the things are about. They're seeing things in the news. They're seeing rhetoric by politicians. I don't really know if people are really firsthand dealt with things.
Hmm.
I think if they dealt with things, and I've been to a number of drag shows, and they're all like really fun. And I've seen them, and I've seen kids there, and the kids love it. I mean, it's
Hmm.
not sexual at all. It's
Yeah.
bingo, or it's like reading stories. There's no, I've seen much more sexual things happening in other things, movies that are much more, but I think it's the education piece. I don't think people don't really know, what it's about. They kind of just they again, there's a stigma. There's assumption. There's not fact, or not, people haven't actually dealt with it firsthand. So I guess if anything from here is, as you mentioned too, vacationing, going different places, and that's how you experience things. Getting out there, being a little uncomfortable with things that you haven't done in the past. That's how we all learn different things. So if anyone's listening to this, try doing different things. That always helps. Um, so leading to the next question, what are some best practices for organizations to create a more inclusive environment for LGBTQ plus employees?
Well, I think it starts with, starting with your policies, making sure that you have, policies surrounding diversity, equity, inclusion, open door policies, anti-discrimination, EEOC, EEO policies, things that kind of start your baseline. And then, you know, as an organization, it's important, especially to be, you know, um, a good listener. Some people struggle with things at work that, could be associated with, not feeling included at work. So it's important that we do the best we can to have, open arms and open minds and let people, have those discussions about how they're feeling. And, you know, if you have more people who are feeling like they're included in the work environment, then the more productive they're going to be.
Yeah, yeah, no, I 100%. I also want to piggyback on that as well, and I mentioned this, I think, on the last question too, is education. Making sure that we're giving, professional development to our employees, having these discussions. For instance, I know a lot of companies want to have a DEI person come in and have discussions around this, or even like Pride Month, having someone come in and speak about these things. But don't let it stop at this one particular training. Keep the conversations going, because when we have an hour to talk about things, if we don't have the conversations again, until next year, we're not going to be, it's, again, we're in a day of age where, there's so much being put into our heads that we're gonna, our attention span and the information that we can, that we can actually obtain is hard. So we want to make sure we're going to have to keep these things going. Don't let it just stop with just one training. Again, I know it's hard because we all have our regular jobs, our regular duties we have to do, but just making sure that we give enough time and support for our employees to really, to educate them on all these different various issues. So I think education is a big part of it. And like we mentioned too, making sure your policies are updated, making sure they have the open door policy, as you mentioned, where someone can go to a manager and speak with them if something happens, or and not even just anything negative, maybe just a positive thing that happened. If someone yesterday had a great discussion, they want to bring it up to the manager about it. We can also discuss things and have an open door conversation around things that are also positive in nature, not just things that we perceive as negative. So those are just some things to have an inclusive environment.
Yeah.
What does it mean? The next question, what does it mean to be an ally for the LGBTQ plus community?
Um, I mean, I guess the word ally can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I see it as, someone who is supportive of, whatever struggles that another human being that is going through at the time, and being able to listen and showing their support um, where it might not benefit them to show their support. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
um, putting yourself out there to show your support for someone, regardless of the consequences to you, that really means a lot to people. And you can be an ally in the LGBTQ plus community. You can be an ally in the, in all different categories. Being an ally, showing up for people, being supportive when you see something that is, not right at work, or, even outside of work. You see something that's not right, that's wrong. It's important to, it's important that the people who are being targeted by a lot of this hateful rhetoric and, you know, politics have people who are not, part of the community, part of the target group to stand up. They say that in order for evil to triumph, it just takes good people to do nothing. And so it's important that you, you know, wear your, allyship like a badge of honor. Make sure that you're showing up for your people, whoever they might be. And I think that's important to really reinforce that we all have our roles as an ally, whether you're part of the LGBT plus community or not. There are different ways that you can be an ally. And one of those, to me, it means showing up.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I mean that's yeah, and when it doesn't benefit you, when it doesn't benefit you, or it may make your life a little bit difficult
Hmm.
if you do try to help and support. And I'm also just going to add too, and I mention this often, is when again, as you mentioned, ally is different things to different people. You don't have to be necessarily going to a protest march to be an ally. You can simply educate yourself on a daily basis that can help you determine what is right and wrong. Learn about, or doing things that make you more uncomfortable. Maybe joining a different group that you didn't know about before. So there are a lot of ways of how you can be an ally. And again, there's no right or wrong answer to that, really. It just depends what you want to do as an individual, to further a cause, or to help a friend or help a colleague, um, and whatnot. So yeah, that's it. It's important because really we wouldn't be where we are now if it wasn't for allyship. I mean, there are a lot of people within the community who have done tremendous, who've been of support and help and all of that. But allies have also been a big part of a big part of where we are now. We did have one more question. We are almost out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mention the question here, and if you want to mention the comments, feel free to chime in and join the conversation. The last question was, how can we ensure that the support and conversations around LGBTQ plus inclusion continue beyond Pride Month? So let us know what you think. Chime in with our conversation, comment. Again, you can always reach out to myself or JoLynn to further the conversation. If you want to be a guest, if you want to have a certain topic, let us know. Again, you can reach me. My email is aparadiso@industrialui.com. And JoLynn, how can people reach you?
J Haresign, Haresign at industrialui.com.
Perfect. Well, again, it's been a pleasure, JoLynn. And again, happy Pride.
Happy
Um,
Pride.
and we will a great conversation, and we will see you next month.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.